Welcome to the Podcast of Champions. I'm your host, Lord Deathman, and on today's show, we're going to be discussing Disney Plus's new Star Wars series, Andor. On today's show, we've got a lean but mean crew of champions to discuss and review the show. We have Taylor in the house today. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good.
And we also have the Grandmaster.
Hello.
If by chance you don't already know, we will be discussing spoilers on this show. So if you haven't seen the first 3 episodes of Andor, we highly recommend that you do that and then come back to hear this discussion. If you like what we do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, don't be shy about the like button and leave us some comments if you disagree with any of the ideas that we're expressing here on today's show. So without any further ado, I'm really excited to get into the discussion about Andor. I really liked it. I want to give the show high marks straight off the bat, but I'm curious to know what our first champion, Taylor, thinks of the first 3 episodes of Andor.
Well, it is early. It's only the first 3 episodes, but I'm really enjoying it so far. I liked it a lot. It's a very, very different feel and tone than what we're used to in Star Wars. And I think that's a good thing, not because it's better, but because it's different. And you know, Star Wars needs to expand and try different things. And I think they're doing a really good job. I think the cast is great. I think the all of the technical aspects, all of the film craft of it is very excellent. The story, of course, is just kind of starting, but and it started a little bit slow in the first episode, and the second one a little bit, and then of course we had a big, very impressive action scene in the last episode. Learning a lot about Andor, and that's good. So far, I'm very much enjoying it, and I really want to see where it goes.
All right. First impressions from Taylor. And then I'm going to do similar for you, Grandmaster. Can you give me your overall impressions? What did you think of the first 3 episodes?
Well, I agree with Taylor. Actually, the first 1.5 episode was I really didn't really grab me, but they made it up in the back end of those 3 episodes. It's a good thing they dropped those first 3 episodes together. Otherwise, there would have been some critique which wouldn't be justified. You give a stamp after the first episode, and it's hard to get rid of that stamp. Well, luckily they were smart enough to drop those first 3 episodes and get the story going. Overall, I really liked it. It certainly has a different tone. It's not so heavy on the Skywalker saga per se, like cameos or stuff like that. You don't have that. It really is similar to the tone of Rogue One, and that's my favorite Star Wars movie. So I'm happy.
All right. A lot of fans have expressed your opinion about the first 2 episodes or the first episode and a half sort of being somewhat slow. I want to drill down just a little bit more into that. Where do you feel that they started to grab your attention if it wasn't in the first episode and a half, the first 2 episodes?
Yeah, I don't know. It's the moment that grabbed me is when the lieutenant, I should say, or is gathering his forces and they're investigating, and on the other end you have that betrayal from Trix, her boyfriend, towards Cassian Andor. That really started the intrigue of the show, and to see the same character interacting with Cassian Andor in the past and in the present, that also helped with the spaceship that went down on his planet. Forgot the name. It's been a while since I saw them, but
I think it's an Imperial frigate.
Yeah, so Canino was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the moment the show started to accelerate for me. I think the first hour of the show, if you count 40 minutes episode, was setting the stage for the most part, and then they needed to get basically Cassian Andor off the stage they had set. So that's what happened in the second hour of what we saw so far. And well, that was really intriguing. The action scene, like Taylor said, was very good. And well, I might add, Star Wars dropped a curse word in the show on Disney Plus.
Yeah, they did.
Mentioned the word shit. So that's a first for this franchise. And this franchise is Andor has the potential to be my favorite Star Wars Disney Plus show, but it has the potential.
Right, right. We're only talking about the first 3 episodes, so nobody can make any really sweeping generalizations. I think we're getting a good mix of action, a good mix of drama. We're getting some stellar performances out of the entire cast. But now that we've got the early impressions, your first impressions out of the way, I want to turn back to the forum and really do a deep dive into what it is that's really standing out to you about this. You can talk about some things you don't like as far as the show is concerned, and things that you do like, as well as some things that stand out to you. Really, what is really making this show different for you. I want to put a seed, a germ, while you're thinking about that, out into the air. I don't know that this is pretty early in Star Wars history as far as the movie trilogies go. And it feels like Andor's, and again, spoilers, the assassination of those 2 rent-a-cops is really the shot that kind of starts the Star Wars rebellion, right? That there really isn't, it seems like there's an organized rebellion before that, and there's some people doing things, but the recruitment of Andor seems to be a moment for the rebellion when they get this type of person involved. So I want to see what you guys' opinion of that is when you're talking about your deep dive. And we'll start with Taylor.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Definitely loving the intrigue, and I think there's going to be a lot of intrigue in this show, and a lot of the seamier side of building a rebellion and trying to impede the Empire in some way. At this point, the rebellion is apparently just getting on its feet or just starting out. So there's going to be a long road ahead. Yeah, the opening scene was very interesting. How he was in that place looking for his sister, and I'm hoping, I don't know how far they're going to go with that. I hope the search for the sister storyline doesn't take over too much of the show. I'm sure there's going to be some more of it. I hope it doesn't just become overpowering of the political and the rebellion side of the story. But it was interesting that he got in there, and then those 2 guys stopped him outside, and he ended up killing them. One of which, flat out shot the guy cold blood, because he didn't want to be. He knew that guy would then be able to identify him and would come after him. So it was to cover his own tracks. He's obviously trying to stay hidden, which is not working out for him too well in the first 3 episodes, because of that one guy, Mr. Conscientious, did the legwork to track him down, even though his boss said, "Yeah, we don't want to stir stuff up. Those guys shouldn't have been there anyway." But he didn't listen to his boss. He decided to be a detective, and he did a good job. He found who it was and where he was. Unfortunately, they're kind of like on the edge of the Republic or the Empire at this point. I'm guessing an incident, a whole bunch of activity like we saw in that final episode of bombs going off and things like that, that's going to attract the attention of the Empire pretty quick. So I think you may be right in that it's sort of sparking things, kicking things in the butt. And obviously, Andor didn't seem to have any interest in being part of the resistance or part of the rebellion at that point. The other guy, and I'm sorry, I forget the guy's name, the guy that he met in the warehouse there, is obviously trying to convince him to join, and looks like he's going to be successful. But as far as how committed, or whether Andor has plans to use the rebellion for his own purposes, remains to be seen. The one other thing, I didn't mind the flashbacks to show us Andor's background. I don't always think that sort of thing is necessary. I think you could just tell us, but I don't mind it. It was the flashback scenes were fine. They were interesting, but the cutting was a little bit jarring. There were times when I didn't know if I was looking at the past or the present for a few seconds, you know, and
Right.
that's a little bit annoying. But overall, yeah, all going good.
Yeah, I think they did a great job. And I also had a little cognitive issue with the editing the first time I went and watched them, but I actually watched them a second time, and it's actually really clever how they cut back and forth between the past and the present. But you might not get it on the first watch or your first impression of the show in terms of not being familiar with everything. But a second watch really does. It's rewarding in terms of the editing. So I don't want to make it sound like the murder of these two sort of corporate policemen was like Franz Ferdinand and it started World War I, but it certainly seems to mark an escalation on both sides. So you have these Imperials. I think the gentleman you were trying to name is Cyril Karn, and he was the lieutenant, I believe, who's sort of overzealous and doesn't seem to understand his position. It's like, dude, you're on an adjunct police force. You're not Imperial. You're not playing at a certain level, but obviously he has ambitions to go farther with his careers, which oftentimes can lead to, the fomenting of fascism. This is how you get to a point where people get super militarized. That whole escalation of the conflict when they go to find Andor in the third episode, like, for the murder of those two men, they lost like a half a dozen troops trying to apprehend Andor, and that just seems strange. But what do you think of that, Taylor? Where do you think this is all going, like, politically?
Well, I mean, they've got a plan for how many seasons for this show already? 3 or 5, I can't remember which.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's gonna. I think each season is supposed to cover a year or something in time. So, like I said, I think this is gonna focus some Imperial attention on this little corner of the galaxy,
right?
And that means a more heavy hand in that area, which might inspire more people to start resisting when the heavy hand of the Empire starts coming in.
Yeah, I think so as well. You also see the rebellion kind of take a step up, and again, I think recruiting Andor sort of is a watershed moment. They're seeing someone. I think the rebellion at this point is full of people who are willing to act in a certain traditional rebellious way, but when they see it can be done differently with Andor, when they see that this guy, they're like, how did you do this? How did you get this piece? Like they're really saying, this guy is familiar, even though he doesn't know it. He's kind of a guerrilla fighter, and this is the type of attitude that we need in our resistance. So it's really interesting stuff. But I'm going to jump to Grandmaster now and sort of get your deep dive into the show. Likes, dislikes, where you think it's going, how you think it differs from other shows, whatever you want to talk about.
I'm going to start with disagreeing a little bit with Taylor. You're saying this lieutenant was very good at finding the murderer of his two colleagues. Was he, though? I mean, he set up a station, and then he got the information from somebody who had an agenda, get Cassian Andor out of the way, and then he went on and recruited some other ambitious bastards, and they went to the planet, and then, basically they get their ass kicked. So how good were they actually at the police job? And actually that's
the investigative part. I think I agree with Taylor on the Cyril is very good at that part, but when it actually came to executing the plan to capture, you really had toy soldiers at that point with what's his name, Sergeant, I guess I'll call him Sergeant Kissass, that guy. He's kind of pretending he's like a serious operator, when in reality these guys probably aren't operating on the level of Imperials. They don't know how to do crowd control. Their men aren't disciplined enough. There's a murder that happens almost immediately. But I think the investigation part, Grandmaster, was somewhat skillful on the part of Cyril. So I do have to sort of agree with Taylor there.
I think he got lucky. That the murder suspect was also a competitor in a lot of interest. But anyway, but that's actually the part that annoys me a little bit about not only the show but about the whole of Star Wars. The Empire or the First Order or whatever you want to call them, they're so freakingly incompetent all the time. They never get a win. Even when they're supposed to win, like in The Empire Strikes Back, they still lose. So, if it's supposed to be such a evil empire and controlling everything, and why do they lose so much? And why do they get their ass handed to them every single time? I know good needs to conquer bad, but at a certain moment, I used to play FIFA a lot, and there was an English commentator, and he said he couldn't hit a cow's backside with a banjo. Well, that's true for everybody who has some kind of authority within the empire, and it's annoying. I mean, at least make it actually seem threatening, but not to diss on this show with that per se.
That's just something that kind of happens in Star Wars, and you're absolutely right. There's no getting around that.
And there was some of that as well with the police force in episode 3. They were really incompetent. He got surprised by somebody in the back. Come on. Check if there's a back door or something where people can sneak in or something. I don't know, but anyway, let's not dwell on that too much. Overall, I really enjoyed the episode. I thought the love triangle was cleverly handled without it being so much on the forefront. It was there, and it had a role to play in the story.
Right.
That was developing. So. Very well done. Without spending a lot of time on scenes showing Cassian talking or getting his daily life, being involved with a lot of people on the planet, you still get the impression that he is a well-known figure in that town, and everybody knows what he's doing. They established that all well, so you get a real feel like it's a real world, and they did that very well. Like I said before, I really liked the action scene. It was very well done, even though the opponents were not that capable. I really enjoyed it. It gave me a little bit of a feel like an old Western. Like a battle happening in an old Western town, and the good guys escaping on a fast horse, basically. I really dig it. The Skarsgård, I forgot his first name, but Eric Selvig from the MCU. Sorry, I call him like that. His character is really intriguing.
Luthen. Luthen, I believe, is the character.
Luthen, yeah, Luthen. He was really intriguing. He came to do a deal, and then actually he found a better deal while he was doing the deal, which was very well done. I also enjoyed that moment in the factory when all those cables with things attached to it came down and stuff like that. That was really well done. So yeah, the third episode was really excellent. Didn't care too much for the flashback story.
It's. I would love for you to unpack that. So you didn't like sort of the indigenous upbringings of Andor on his home planet and that subplot?
Yeah, I didn't need to see it. Like Taylor said, you can just tell where he comes from, or you can still show the same story, but then spend less time on it. I mean, We don't need to see a bit like them traveling through the woods or so much and stuff like that. It really mixed the pacing a bit for these episodes, and it hurt the pacing, I should say. So no, I wasn't too keen on that. Everybody has a background, I know, and for a TV show that's supposed to run for multiple seasons, I get why they put it in, but they could have done. But if you compare it to another show that had a lot like flashbacks, a flashback story and a main story running concurrently throughout the show, like Arrow, I always hated the parts on the island. You know, like that, very annoying. Show me the stuff that's happening now. So, and I mean, you could have wrapped this up in the first 10 minutes of the show and then moved to the concurrent storyline and forget about it. You know what happened. Although I must admit, I really like the comparison between when the ships took off in the past and in the present. You get the same feel what happening. Andor's moving on to a new situation. So that was well done. So I guess that's why they did it. But overall, I really enjoyed the show. I do have some issues though.
Indeed. And while I do respect your opinion regarding the execution of the flashbacks in the show, I do think it was kind of table stakes because in Rogue One, when we get a little bit of history about Andor, I think we're made to understand that he's been in the rebellion or fighting with the rebellion since he was 6 or at some young age, and I think they just had to kind of deliver on that in some way in the series to kind of show you that this whole environmental disaster on his planet, which was caused by the Empire, is really a part of the impetus of him being an outsider, if not a full member of the rebellion.
Yeah, but like I said, you can do that like in the first 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, and you could have done it in a variety of different ways. But there is one excellent edit, though, when they go between the past and the present, when I think Fiona Shaw and the young Cassian and her companion, they're trying to make a decision about, their salvage operation and whether they should take Andor along because he's obviously going to be killed by the Imperials who are en route. I think the bot says something like there's an Imperial frigate, inbound, and then we cut to the same ship that's inbound on the way to apprehend Cassian. So there's a little bit of rhyming there that I kind of respected in terms of what the filmmakers were trying to do. But I get your opinion, though. I totally do.
Okay.
Yeah, but Taylor, is there any last minute commentary that comes to your mind as a result of the discussion with Grandmaster or?
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with Grandmaster, and I hope they're not going to continue doing the flashbacks. I mean, this whole movie is a prequel. The whole movie is a flashback or the whole show, I should say, is a flashback from Rogue One. Now we're going to have a flashback within a flashback, and maybe another one. But yeah, I agree that it served its purpose. I don't need to see much more. We know that he was still with that woman who picked him up off of the planet. So we can just say he's been with her this whole time, and we can see how they interact, what they do, and they can talk about the past a little bit without cutting away from the main story too much. So I definitely agree with that. I also agree with Grandmaster about Arrow. The thing about the flashbacks there was they almost never showed him practicing his archery on the island in the flashback. So how did he get so darn good with his bow and arrow when he was doing all this other stuff all this time?
Yeah, that's a long stand.
5 years practicing archery. But side note, and I 100% agree with the comments about the Empire. It's really gotten ridiculous. I mean, it's become a meme with how inept the Empire is, and I'm always hoping against hope that we're going to see, some badass stormtroopers who know what they're doing and can actually fire their weapons and use their equipment, and they wear those suits for some purpose that is going to be revealed to us someday, because they don't stop them from being knocked out by gas. They don't protect them from blaster fire. They don't protect them from being hit in the head with a rock. Why do they wear all the freaking armor? Okay. So hopefully they'll show us that at some point. But yeah, I would really like to see in this show a threatening empire, an empire that is not just threatening, but is ruthless and efficient and tracks down their enemies and relentlessly hunts them down and puts them in peril a lot. Not to the point where, you know, the good guys never win, but I want it to at least be difficult for them, especially since we're at the ground floor of the rebellion here. They're barely even organized yet.
I would love to see a scene in any Star Wars where a rebel base is completely wiped out by the Empire, and then only a few survive, a few main characters, but also a few main characters just die. I mean, we need to see that kind of drama in Star Wars. I mean, now it's all like hearsay. They tell you they're evil, but I see incompetent idiots, and I need to see it. So I would love for a rebel base to be completely destroyed, wiped out. Again, I'm going back to Rogue One. The only time we really got something like that was the destruction of the planet where they just escaped from with the Death Star. I think they that actually was menacing, scary, and a lot of people died because of the Empire, and we don't get that enough. That's why Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie, because you get actually what you need to see.
Yeah, right. And there was a great battle scene in Rogue One at the end there, where the stormtroopers, the Imperial forces, acted like an actual military force and didn't just run into laser fire and miss all the time.
And no main character survived that battle. I mean,
exactly.
The main characters of that movie didn't survive that battle. So that's why Rogue One is so excellent. They made the daring choice, and they don't do that enough in my book.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm not going to count Dan and Tony Gilroy out as far as perhaps bringing some of that acumen to the Empire when it comes to this series. They did, I forget which one of them's directing and which one's contributing to the writing on this, but Team Gilroy has written a lot of great stuff, and I really love the dialogue that they're writing for this particular series. I think it's one of the best written shows, at least in terms of the things people say. But that being said, I'm not going to count them out just yet in terms of I think there's still time for them to present us with a competent empire that knows what it's doing. They already incompetently destroyed an entire planet in an environmental disaster. Let's see if they can make up for it. But in any event, we're going to move on to the ratings section of the show, our favorite part, where we are going to have to give this a 1 to 10 rating in terms of how much we liked it, 10 being on the higher side of the scale. Grandmaster, I'm going to start with you. What is your overall grade for Andor? First 3 episodes.
I would say 8 out of 10. And I would go higher if it had the same quality like the 3rd episode all over those 3 episodes, but it didn't. So I go 8 out of 10.
Okay. So even with your reservations about how they're handling the Empire and some of the flashbacks, you still think this is a high quality show?
Yeah, it's very good. Actually, it's really good. Only, I would like to see a little bit more even. Yeah, I'm greedy.
Fair enough. Taylor, what would you grade Andor so far?
Yeah, well, like I said, so far in this show, we haven't really seen the Empire. We've seen these, little police forces out on the outer rim that fall under the Empire. So I have high hopes for the Empire in this show going forward. And I really like the world building so far. I like the tone, the feel. I like how everybody has a job, and it's an actual job that makes sense,
Yeah.
So they all feel like Grandmaster said, it feels real.
Yeah.
So and I didn't mind the slow burn in the first couple of episodes. It was kind of setting the pieces. Like I said, a little bit slow, a little bit too much on the flashbacks. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Excellent. That's a really high grade, a really strong grade. So it seems like we're off to a good start with Andor. I myself would be in the 8 or 9 range as well as far as my review. I really like the way they fleshed out Andor as a character. I think the introduction with him, murdering those 2 guards, not wanting to, but kind of committing a manslaughter there. the fact that he seems to always be in debt, he seems to be going against the grain, that he doesn't have a job like everybody else on the planet, hauling something or pulling out wires out of something. He really seems like a character that's been going his own way for a long time, which in my mind sets him up as perfect kind of rebellion material. He's just not a conformist. So, but there'll be lots more to see. And of course, we're going to be covering it all here on the Podcast of Champions. I want to take a second to see if we have any closing remarks before we bring an end to the show, gentlemen.
Let's just pray it doesn't fall into the Star Wars trap of his girlfriend turns out to be his missing sister.
Indeed. Well, somebody's going to turn out to be somebody else's sibling or brother or sister or something. It's Star Wars. We're going to have something like that's going to happen at some point. I think, yeah. But
I just wonder if we get like teenage Leia or something.
Teenage Leia.
Yeah.
Leia at all stages. The time period would be right. So we'll see. We'll see what Andor has to offer. So
I hope not, by the way.
Yeah, I'm hoping not either. If we can stay away from the two famous twins of Star Wars, this show will have a chance of being something different in Star Wars canon that we haven't seen before. So
yes. Hopefully Andor has never heard of Tatooine and never goes there.
And has no aspirations or reason to go there. Yeah, we did see quite a few different locales as far as this show is concerned. And I hope they show us a few more. It would be really good to see some different locations in Star Wars for once. Yeah. But you heard it here, folks. We're giving high marks to Andor, and we're looking forward to seeing more. I want to take this opportunity to invite you to join us on social media at Facebook or Twitter or any of the popular social media channels that are out there. You can connect with us at the Podcast of Champions. I think we even have a little something going on at Instagram. And, we all, of course, want you to be safe out there in fandom, avoid those toxic elements, and enjoy what it is that you do. So until next time, I've been Lord Deathman, and you've been chatting with both Grandmaster and Taylor, and this has been the Podcast of Champions.